It's time for another Piltdown Superman podcast, and this time I'm going back to discussing the logical fallacies as promised. Things have been really hopping around here. We had the debate between Bill, the I play a scientist on TV guy, and Ken Ham, plus the aftermath of that with people showing the fallacies and the bad science that Bill and I produced. Then we had Question Evolution Day on Darwin's birthday, February 12th. That was a success. We had support from places that I had never heard of or dreamed of. And we also had a couple of people that did not keep their promises to support it, so I'm a bit disappointed in that regard. Overall, it has been much more successful and continues to grow, so I'm very pleased. Here in Kingston, New York, we're coming off a couple of really big snowstorms. Massive snowfalls plus bad plowing in this apartment complex actually caused me to miss a couple of days of work, but we're looking forward to getting on with that part of life as well. Today we have a couple of evil twins in logical fallacies, the appeal to authority and the appeal to popularity. Now, these fallacies are often blended together and added to other fallacies for a manipulative effect. You may remember that I insist that people think with their emotions more than they do with their minds. That works for manipulators. When somebody wants to ridicule their belief system or something, people on the receiving end of these tricks will often cave in, and they'll just crawl away in humiliation. Having some skill in recognizing that someone is using fallacies and maybe trying to manipulate you should help you out from being fooled. But watch out, I have seen people justify their fallacies, and even justify their outright lies, with more fallacies and excuses. Identifying the fallacy of appeal to authority can be tricky. First thing to look for is whether or not the authority is actually an authority on the subject. Lawrence Krauss, Richard Dawkins, and others of this nature will go on about religion, but they have no credentials in that area, so citing them about matters of religion is a fallacious appeal to authority. Now, I pointed that out, and somebody countered that Krauss is an expert because he did research on religion. Well, in that case, I'm an expert on creation science and theology because I've studied the subject for many years. But I can't prove it. Also, when you hear or read these angry atheists talking about God and giving excuses to disbelieve, even though their credentials are in some science area, they are not convincing as experts on theology or religion because of their bad philosophy, worse theology, and abundant logical fallacies. But I digressed a bit. I do tend to do that. The first point for a valid appeal to authority is if someone is indeed an expert in his or her field. However, that is not a guarantee of truthfulness or that they are unbiased. People will throw links at creationists from atheist sites and evolutionist sites as if that was a final refutation of our positions. But they are heavily biased, often outdated. Many are written by amateurs and have negative attitudes. Much of their material has been already refuted. That's why I don't allow links from these hate-theist pieces at the Question Evolution Project. Another problem with appealing to authority is that these days you can find any crackpot to support your position, and they have some kind of credentials. For example, most experts in archaeology agree that the findings support the Bible. This includes unbelievers. They will admit, yes, the Bible is supported by archaeology. But someone will seek out a so-called expert that disagrees with the majority view, and they'll cite them to support their own opinion. My contention is that people will appeal to authority and throw links at you instead of actually taking the time to talk about and think about the subject. They just want to make you be wrong. Similarly, creationists are often subjected to people defending evolution and going in a different way with the authority fallacy. I've had people assuming that I have no schooling in science subjects because I'm a creationist, and I'm slipping in the genetic fallacy, therefore I have no right to question evolution. People who are not schooled and experts in science have no right to question evolution. What's that, appeal of lack of satisfactory authority in their eyes? Meanwhile, the people who tell us that we have no right to doubt evolution seldom have education and credentials to support it. This is a clear double standard and an attempt to silence the opposition. They'll just tell us you can't deny evolution because you're not a scientist. Well, then you can't question the umpire's call in a baseball or football game because you're not in that field, right? Let's just extend this a little further to a logical conclusion. Everybody's got to shut up unless they're an expert. By the way, I've seen people deny the authority of creationists out of ignorance of the credentials of the creationists, basically based on dislike or, like I mentioned, the genetic fallacy, they don't like creationists. Watch out for appeal to authority. It can be legitimate and helpful, but it is often used incorrectly and can be used just to bludgeon people, beat you into submission. Similar to this is the appeal to the majority. Sometimes I call that might makes right. Does a majority determine truth? Just like so many people were told by their mothers, if everyone else was jumping off a bridge, would you do it too? I remember an old Smothers Brothers TV show where Tom said that to Dick. And Tom said, if everyone else was jumping off a bridge, would you do it too? And Dick said, not again. Anyway, most people support or approve of evolution is a frequent claim. So, that doesn't make it true just because people support it or believe it. And related to this fallacy is the appeal to belief, where the difference is subtle. Most people believe in evolution, therefore it is right. I think the differences are too small to really matter, especially since people combine fallacies. Most people accept evolution, therefore it's right. Most people believe evolution, therefore it's right. People agreed with what scientists taught them about the theory of phlogiston. This lasted about 100 years in the mid-16th and 17th centuries. Stuff burned because it contained this invisible stuff called phlogiston. Then oxygen was discovered. Even so, phlogiston theory had people who were slow to abandon it. I say that evolution is modern phlogiston theory because it's contrary to the evidence, but many people still cling to it. After all, it does give a scientific veneer to rejection of God. I thought I had screenshots of the many times I've been subjected to these things, so I don't have a nice picture for the Atheopath follies. I'll just go on and have to settle for telling you about them. Just recently, on Question Evolution Day, February 12th, someone asserted that
99% of the scientists accept evolution.
Really? That's an assertion. There are literally thousands who question or outright reject evolution. Some couple that with ridicule.
How come you're so stupid because you don't believe the consensus of scientists and what everyone else knows is true?
This is bad on several levels. Aside from appeal to ridicule, to popular opinion, to authority, it leaves out some important facts. Learn to talk. Consensus does not make truth. It was the scientific consensus for phlogiston making things burn, remember. People believed it. By the way, Darwin's cheerleaders will throw around the majority view and consensus, but are often disingenuous or ignorant of their own belief system. For example, claiming that dinosaurs evolved into birds ignores the fact that not all secular scientists in that field hold to that viewpoint, and that there is abundant fossil evidence that dinosaurs and birds lived at the same time. There is evidence that dinosaurs ate birds. When you see those posters of the evolution parade that many people will throw at you, not all scientists agreed on the progression and the creatures that are involved in it. There are scientists that dispute these so-called missing links. Some of them are fully human, some are fully ape. There has never been a full consensus. So claiming consensus fails on several levels, and just saying scientists believe in evolution. No, they're leaving out a lot of scientists that are quibbling about it. So keep an eye out for appeal to authority. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's spurious. Often it's an attempt just to throw names or links at you to shut you up. In the same way, appeal to a popular opinion or belief will not determine truth. Just because the majority believes something, just because the majority of secular scientists believe something, that does not determine truth. Just because the majority of people accept something. I'm coming into the subtleties between these fallacies. But might does not make right. The majority does not rule and does not determine truth. We should not be intimidated or manipulated or bullied by people who will use these fallacies. Truth is on our side. Scientific evidence is on our side, but evolutionists do not want you to know the facts that disprove their worldview. The opinions and interpretations of scientific evidence are in a constant state of change. That's what science is for, if they will actually examine the evidence instead of going with their evolutionary presuppositions. But evolutionism is still believed. Our Christian faith is not based on atheistic interpretations of science, but on the unchanging Word of God.